it's just being more aware that the path to success in property, but in anything, is not like it's not like this. You're gonna go whoa, up and down, roller coaster all over. But as long as you're doing that consistent action over time, that is like another mantra, consistent action over time, you will get to your goals. But be prepared for the struggle as well.
Well, good morning. How are you, Caroline?
Morning. I'm very good. Excited for our conversation today.
Great. Well, so am I. You're a young entrepreneur.
Love
who's been advancing, and I suppose you've gone through that hump, and now you're kind of on the real upward curve. Managing a portfolio of over £6 million in property.
Correct.
And growing quickly. So it's but you've been through the whole entrepreneurial journey, which is what really interests me. And of course, what interests me is what gave you this drive and how you did. I also know that you're a busy mum. You've got 2 kids, all into sport.
Yeah.
And you must have a very happy household with Mike being a Liverpool, Mike being your other half's a Liverpool fan, and you being a Leeds fan. I don't think you're ever going to get another year like this.
Although we'll see next season how happy it is.
Yeah, I suspect maybe the Liverpool side will at least have a season of
no comment.
But no, I think it's brilliant that I know what a sporty family you are, and I think it's just great for kids and families to be involved in sport.
Yeah.
So if we go into it, just kind of give us a movie trailer of your life.
Okay.
And then we'll get into some questions.
Okay, so very briefly, thank you so much for having me on, Dave. I'm super excited for this. So I grew up Leeds, played tennis my whole life from a young age, from around the age of 4. Tennis was my life as a child, and then that led me on to university, to a scholarship over in America. And then it actually led me into my first job because I had no clue when I'd left uni what I wanted to do. So I started working as a sales rep for a well-known tennis brand, Babolat, and I was loving life then. Had more money than I'd ever had because I had a job. So I had time. I didn't have any kids. I could play my sport, go out with my friends, go on holiday, do whatever I wanted. And then we decided to have children. And then that's when it all changed. So my eldest is now 10. Harry, he's turning 11 next month, actually. And then Isla is 9. She's just turned 9. So it was really around the time that Harry was 3 years old that, we kind of figured that something was going to have to change in our lives. Because although we had a great life, it was just what we wanted to be able to give our children in terms of time, freedom, travel, all of the opportunities that we had growing up, myself and my husband, because he was equally as sporty as a child as well. So we were both on the same page with what we wanted our family life to look like. And then that was what led me into kind of changing and pivoting my career, if you like, about 9 years ago.
Brilliant. And we'll get a little bit more into that. So my first question for you is, which 2 people have influenced you the most in your life, and only one allowed to be a family member? Got to keep it spicy.
Okay.
And kind of why? What was it about these 2 people that gave you maybe different perspectives, or changed your thinking, or inspired you?
Okay. So I had a bit of time to think about this. And firstly, I would go for the probably the easy option, and one that people may say it's going to tend to be a parent potentially. And my mum, I would have to say, was a massive influence on me and the way that I am now as an adult. It's one of those when people say, "Oh my God, you're so much like your mum," and I'm like, it's happening. I actually am. But the the way that she raised myself and my brother, I remember going out for runs with her when I was maybe 10, 11 years old, 12 years old. I can actually remember my first fun run with her when I was about 8. And I finished this run and I was absolutely shattered because she wasn't just going to let me like cruise around or walk if I was a little bit tired. It was no, you keep going, you don't stop, you keep running. And that she's literally just always stayed in my head with whatever I'm doing. She was such a motivator. And I'll always say this to her, and she thinks that it's like a negative. She'll go, "Oh, I must have been such a horrible mum." And I'm like, "No, you were amazing," because not many parents kind of push their children, especially parents that are kind of my generation now with young kids. I feel like it's way more of a soft environment with children, which I'm not sure if that's a good thing. But anyway, we can speak about that later. Um, my mum, I remember then, so that fun run, going out for runs with her. She loved her running. She didn't really do tennis or other sport. It was running for her. And I remember because I'd got to a stage where I was quicker, and she'd be like, "Right, run to the next lamppost, do 5 burpees, and run back to me." And I'm going, okay. So I'll just go and do it. Run back to her. And in my head, I'm going, what am I doing? God, she's awful. What am I doing? But actually, it was such a motivator. And even with like doing schoolwork, and this, I'm not saying this as if as if this was bad at all, because it has really affected me positively. So if ever I was doing a test and I got 9 out of 10 on a test, I'd be like buzzing. 9 out of 10. What happened to the other point? Like, what happened? And she was kind of saying it tongue in cheek, but I always knew she was going to say stuff like that to me. So it was always about wanting to do better. And if you're going to do something, do it right the first time. All these things come into my head now. Complete the task. Like, complete the task. That was one of her favorite things to say. Do so if you're doing something, do it right, finish it, and do it well. So yeah, that was the way that she instilled these kind of values in me was kind of key as a child.
But I think it's also important because she didn't just talk it, she
Mm,
walked the talk. So you didn't get one message and see
yeah,
something else.
yeah.
And I think that congruency is the real key factor, because I'm a real believer that people generally do what you do rather than do what you say.
Exactly.
So by leading by example,
Yeah.
then the message becomes congruent and therefore
Hmm.
very powerful.
Yeah.
But if you're sitting on the couch, and eating crisps and chocolate and going
Yeah.
go for a run,
Yeah.
the kids like,
Mm,
why?
yeah.
Because what they're seeing is sit around.
Exactly. And that's what I'm trying to do now with my kids is do as I, well, not do as I say, but they see what I'm doing, and hopefully that down the line it's just that kind of impact over time, isn't it? Where they think, "Oh yeah, mum's working out or mum's working hard or whatever it is." It just filters into their little brains as to hopefully make them into, having the same values and thoughts as I do.
Well, I mean, this is a bit controversial. I'm going to just throw it out there, but I've heard so many times, as a tennis coach,
Hmm.
that what we need to do to get, more champions is going to the deprived areas
And
and recruit from there,
hmm.
because, that'll make a difference. But one of the key issues that's very difficult is, unless there is the examples in the household,
Hmm.
self-esteem, good habits and stuff like that are not maybe being seen. So in order to, I mean, I think people who've come out of, real deprivation and get successful
Hmm.
will either have a special parent or a special person in their life that shows them by example what is possible,
Hmm.
and that can help them out of there. But without that, it is very, very difficult to, without taking the person out of that environment
Hmm.
completely,
Yeah.
which has its own issues, to give people, habits of success and belief in success. Because
Hmm.
if you don't see it ever around you, it's also very, very difficult. But anyway, it's just something aside that, it's I think, being able to demonstrate things in front of kids is really, really important.
Absolutely.
Um, so your second person, unless you have
Second.
more to say about your mum.
Yeah, no, no, no. Second person. There you go, Mum. That's your little bit. And it was all positive for when she listens to this. Like, it was all good. I had an amazing childhood. But my second person was probably very similar in the way that they influenced me. But he was actually one of my tennis coaches from, I think, the age of 8 through to about 14, 15, 16. He was a county tennis coach, Steve McLaughlin. You may know
I
him.
do know him.
You know him, yeah. Um, and I don't know, people in general respond to coaches differently and different types of coaching, but his coaching really resonated with me and pushed my buttons to get the best out of me. I found him so inspiring, and he was probably one of the main reason why I carried on playing tennis. I fell in love with the sport. I wanted to improve. I wanted to do better. And actually, I met up with him probably about 6 months ago now. And I said, do you know what, Steve? My life is pretty much where it is, partly down to you,
Oh,
in
what a
terms
wonderful
of
thing to do.
well, yeah, in terms of my well, I went to boarding school for sixth form through a tennis scholarship. I went to university in America, tennis. My first job was tennis. I met my husband through playing tennis. Like, it was all tennis heavy. And if it hadn't have been him as an instrumental part in making me fall in love with the sport, then my life wouldn't be where it is now. So he was really key, and it was down to his coaching styles really worked for me, and I just found him really motivating and inspiring as a child, and still do. He's one of those people that I just look up to massively.
And what, if we just dig a little deeper into that, what do you think were the buttons that he was able to push, and how did he manage to do that for you?
So I remember one of the phrases that he would always say was, if we were doing like running or sprints or a drill where you had to chase balls around the court and you didn't get to the ball, it'd be like, my grandma could have got that and she's been dead 10 years. That was always his favorite. That stayed in my head. He would always say that, and I was thinking, I don't want him to say that to me. Like, right, I'm gonna push. So I know some people that I used to play with hated going to his training sessions, just did not enjoy them at all, because you were like sometimes feeling sick at the end of a session because you'd pushed yourself that much. But that worked for me. I'm kind of that personality where I want to impress, I want to do well, I want to make people proud, especially when I was a kid growing up. So that kind of him pushing, motivating me, wanting to get more out of me, I really rose to that, and wanted to do well in his sessions, which is then why I think I enjoyed them, because I was improving, I was getting praise. So it's that like knock on effect, really.
I have a question on that.
Yeah,
In wanting to, do well to please
yeah,
people,
yeah.
has there been a downside to that
Mm-hmm.
side of you?
Yeah.
Because obviously, people pleasing uh, has to have boundaries. Because if it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have boundaries, then it can, lead to difficulties.
Yeah.
Have you experienced any difficulties through
Yeah,
that
I think
side?
I've got better with it as I've got older, to actually, it's something that I've learned that I have to put myself first and not worry about what other people think so much. But it is definitely a side to my personality that I know it's a bit of a strength and a weakness in a way, because I can get people on board quickly for things. I can build relationships very quickly, easily, because I know kind of what makes people tick. But then the other side of it is you end up putting yourself at the bottom of the list as well, quite a lot. So that is something that I've kind of had to review, especially in this last year, really. And that's down to where we're up to with our property portfolio. And my husband's been able to leave work, so our roles have kind of changed within the household. And I had to kind of step up and go, whoa, I'm like not happy with where we're up to with looking after the kids and how the dynamics shifted. Whereas probably if this had happened 4 or 5 years ago, I just wouldn't have said anything and kind of just carried on and been like, okay, well, it's fine as long as everyone else is happy. So yeah, I've kind of learned, no, you've got to speak out and put yourself first as well sometimes. But it's definitely a juggle that or a battle that I'm always going to contend with, I
Yeah.
guess. Mm.
Great. My next question for you is, has there been an event
Hmm.
that has, you know, influenced your life or changed the perception, or, really, a significant event that happened that you say, wow, since then, I've been different, or X has happened, and
Yeah.
you know, maybe sometimes it's something that you perceive as a bad event, but actually
Mm.
turns out very well.
Yeah. So no, it wasn't a bad event, but it was when we went on our property training about 9 years ago, 8 years ago. At that point, we were living life, we were comfortable, happy with where we were up to, but knew that something was going to have to change to enable us, like I touched on before, to give our children the time and the flexibility that we wanted. We went on this 2 hour free course, and my husband, as you said, is a big Liverpool fan. And it was on these we were talking about, right, what we're going to do. We need a plan. We didn't know it was going to be property. And it was like Instagram was listening to him and the algorithm was listening. And next minute, a picture of Robbie Fowler with a load of houses behind him pops up going, do you want to learn to
I
buy
remember that
houses?
advert
Do
actually.
you remember it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Learn to buy houses with Robbie Fowler. And Mike went, well, I'm going to this. I think he thought Robbie Fowler was going to be there. And he said, and if you can sort the kids, you come as well. And I was going, yes, I will sort the kids because they are 3 and 1, and anything to have a couple of hours away from them would be brill. So we went to this 2 hour talk. And I remember there were a load of quotes, like inspirational stuff. I mean, I'd love to go back there now and re-sit it because it's all about geared towards you spending money and parting with your money to sign up to more education. But one of the quotes was, are you working to build someone else's dream? And why are you working to build somebody else's dream? And that really, I was like, oh my God, because touching on people pleaser, wanting to do really well. My first job when I was working at Babolat, I'd absolutely smashed my first job, my first year at work. And I remember saying to my boss at the time, like, I've done so well. I've hit my targets, like looking forward to my review and my bonus. And I was obviously very naive at the time. And he went, yeah, we'll discuss that. And got around to my review. And he just went, yeah, so the company standard is a 3% pay rise, and that's it. And I just thought, I've literally grown the business by like 30% in my first year alone. And it was then that I kind of, after that first year, I just went, ugh. And I just felt a bit deflated, but I didn't know what else I could do. So I was very like employed. I was so employable, so good at working hard for other people, and didn't really think about, well, I did think about the lack of reward, but I didn't know another way to kind of make my own money or what that was going to look like. So it was when I then went on this presentation and she said that quote, and I was like, yeah, it was like a wake up, like, what have I been doing? Why am I working for somebody else? Why am I not putting my time and energy into creating the life that we want to have? And it was really after those 2 hours that we never looked back. And that was when we dived into property. And
Did
yeah,
you actually do further education with them?
yeah, we did. So we had a free 2 hour. And then it was at the end of the 2 hours, right? The first 10 people to the back of the room get to sign up. Uh, sucker. Okay. But if we hadn't have spent that money, and actually sometimes you've got to take a chance, haven't you, and take the risk. So we signed up. I think we spent £1,000 after that first 2 hour session. And actually it was, I would say, Mike was more of the driver in that. Then I was sat next to him going, "Oh, what do you think? Should we do it? Should we do it?" And he went, "Yeah, we're doing it," fortunately. And then we went on a 3-day training course about 3 months later. And after that, again, it was geared to sign up to more training. And we did, but that was a lot more money. So that was like 15K. But again, what we were learning, the information was it all made sense to us. So it wasn't like we were being
It
sold
was
a
an
dream.
investment, really.
It was an investment, and that's how you've got to look at it, definitely. If we hadn't have done that, we wouldn't be where we are now. Definitely.
Brilliant. So, what life lesson would you like to have your kids know at 20 years old, or yourself to have known at 20 years old?
Yeah.
Um, this is always a difficult one because I think, you know, hindsight is always a wonderful thing. And,
Hmm.
and, and I always say this, you know, if I gave myself the life lesson when I was 20, would I have listened?
Yeah. No. You think you
Probably
know
not.
everything
You
when
know,
you're
we have to learn through our mistakes, and it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. You know, there's probably those rare people that do take this stuff on board very young, and
Hmm.
they just, you know, from a
Yeah,
very young age.
exactly.
Uh, but most people, you know, have to go through 10 years of screwing up to go. Oh, actually, that life lesson, I should have listened then. But if by some magic you could get it into your kids at 20 years old,
Hmm.
what would that be?
So, two things, one practical and one just kind of a way of framing things and thinking about stuff. The first one is just don't sweat the small stuff. That is like a mantra that I live by these days, and I wish I had when I was younger, because I've never I've never kind of fortunately suffered from anything like anxiety or anything like that. I've always been pretty confident at what I'm doing. But I would, with work, worry a little bit if things weren't going to plan, or things that were outside of my control. I would be concerned about, oh, what's going to happen with X, and I need to get that done, and oh, that's gone wrong, or blah blah blah. Stuff that actually, when you look at, and it could get very deep here, but the size of the universe, and just, we are so lucky to be here on this planet now, living life. I'm like, just get on with it. Get on with life. Things are going to go wrong. You are going to, like you say, you learn from mistakes. So don't be afraid to make those mistakes. And if things go wrong, well, the best mindset for me is just
Well,
don't
what
sweat it.
does wrong mean? Because you know
Yeah.
what's going to happen if something
Yeah.
goes
Yeah. Yeah.
wrong. What is
Yeah.
actually going to happen? It's very
Yeah.
rare that something goes wrong that really adversely
Really
affects your
goes wrong.
life. You know,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
it kind of adversely affects your
Yeah.
mind
Yeah.
rather than your actual life.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly. It's
I have
learning
this when
from it.
people are moaning about, you know, the economy and the government and all that. But if you really boil it down and say, okay, it doesn't matter what government you have,
Yeah.
really and truthfully, day to day, how does
Agree.
that affect you? And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
very hard push. Oh, you know, they've, you know, put up national insurance 1%. Well, and if you're in a fortunate enough position where
Hmm.
1% is not that noticeable,
Hmm.
it's not changing your life.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's almost an insult to the people that it does change their life
Hmm.
to be moaning about something that
Exactly.
is not actually on a day-to-day basis you don't even notice. But anyway,
Exactly.
that's
No,
another. I'm
no,
not
no,
going
no,
to go
no.
there.
I
But
love these little like insights into what you think. It's brilliant. But yeah, with that, I just think you control what you can control, in your life. Like you say, government stuff, like I can't do anything about that. There's always going to be external factors, but I need to just stay in my lane, focus on what I'm doing, and yeah, things are going to go wrong. Fine, learn from it, move on, and get back on to doing what you're doing. The second bit that I would probably want my kids to do, and again, something that I did, and I guess I've had coaches all my life, and it's something where you kind of think, well, yeah, most people would have coaches, but I bet there's loads of kids that don't do sport, don't have that other figure from outside the family who inspires, motivates, that you can learn from. And when I started my job, I didn't really have a mentor or a coach. I had my boss, but I'd go in for a review and I'd say, "How am I doing?" He's like, "Yeah, brilliant, awesome, tick, 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 tick." Okay, well, that's not going to progress me in my career or and help me grow. And then when we started our property business, I went to see a guy do a talk, and he was talking about the importance of having a mentor, someone who is 2, 3, 4 years ahead of where you want to be, walking the walk, doing what you're wanting to do, facing the challenges that you've faced. And he really escalated. Basically, I saw him do the talk, and 2 minutes after I got home after that, I said, "Will you mentor me?" Because I was that keen to actually just have him on board. Um, and that, I think, is something that I would say to the kids is so instrumental. Fortunately, they play sport now, so they do have those coaches in their life. But when you grow up, you're an adult. Find somebody as a mentor or coach who you can learn from and speed up your
Well,
process.
yeah, I mean, this is, an area where, my business is growing, and that's,
Yeah.
uh, I'd say really, it's got a bad name, life coaching, but it's kind of life coaching for it's to help people get out of their own head.
Yeah.
And I mean, I will say this, I've blown a lot of cash on some poor coaches,
Yeah.
but it's never stopped me. And I've done a lot of, mentoring programs and
Mhm,
and executive coaching
mhm.
diplomas and stuff. And and to this day, I still have coaches
Yeah.
who
Wow.
help me in
Yeah.
whatever I'm doing. And it's not that, yeah, I think it's just somebody to, yeah, help you get out of your own head. And I've had this for a long time, which is I learned from coaching tennis is,
Mhm,
you know, Jez Green and I was a physical trainer I worked with for, 12 years, and I actually coached him as a player.
mhm.
When we were struggling with a player, we'd just talk about it
Yeah. Yeah.
and talk about it and talk about it. And sometimes, honestly, uh, I said, why are we talking about this player so much? It's ridiculous.
Mhm.
But through those talks, eventually the pathway ahead would suddenly ding for both of us. Like,
Exactly.
this is
Yeah.
what we got to do.
Yeah.
And from there, I used to always say to myself, don't think a problem, talk a problem.
Mhm,
Find somebody, who knows something and
mhm.
could really help, and talk it through with them, because either you'll find it through talking it through, or they'll ask a couple of questions or whatever that finds you the answer that you need for the next step.
Yeah.
And
You're
that's
right.
what it's always about finding the next step. So I think the coaching revolution has started, but
Mhm.
I think it's only just touching the sides right
Oh,
now,
yeah,
because I
exactly.
really believe that, you know, whether it's counseling, therapy, or coaching, every adult needs to have somebody that they can, and it can evolve in different people over different times.
Yeah, that's it. You grow out of people,
Yeah,
don't you? And you move on,
yeah.
definitely.
But I think it's really, really important, and I think over time it will become very normal for
Mhm.
people to have the best in the world at everything in every sport have coaches.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Because that Roger Federer doesn't know how to play tennis. Come on. But even he and all the best know they need to have a sounding board, somebody to talk things through.
Yeah.
When they feeling low and not that confident, that they need somebody there to point out what's good, and
Yeah,
remember,
yeah, yeah.
and
Yeah.
maybe almost see it, it's like those bowling alleys with the things on the side for kids.
Oh, yeah,
When
okay.
the ball starts to go, it just nudges it back in, and
Yeah,
we all can be in a lane, and then we start to stray out the lane, and if somebody can be a buffer there to push us back into the lane, that
exactly.
that is what I think is very helpful about coaching. So
Oh, I
a
totally agree.
wonderful piece of advice, honestly, that you've just
Oh,
given there.
thank you.
I'm I'm going to ask an extra question, which I
Okay.
don't
Ooh,
normally
curveballs.
ask, and that is, you've now been in business for yourself for about 8 years,
Mhm.
and you've gone through a hell of a lot. What couple of things, two, three things, one thing even, do you wish you had really known at the start that would have saved you a lot of hassle, pain, time, you know, because
Oh, good
it's tough starting
question.
and growing a business.
Yeah. So I think it's being what's the word? It's being really clear about what your goals are, but also being aware that it's going to take a lot longer than you think it's going to as well to achieve to get to where you want to be and hit those goals. I mean, we came out of the training, we were like, oh, we're going to buy everything. We're going to have this sewn up in like a year. We're going to be smashing it. And then reality set in. Obviously, the training, they're there to sell the dream of, wow, you're gonna have so much cash flow, massive portfolio, blah blah blah. We were riding that wave of motivation, and then I learned that once the motivation's gone, you have to still be determined and have that why, that reason as to why you're going to make this happen, because it is going to be a lot harder than you ever thought it was going to be. So Instagram's a great place for making everything look shiny and amazing and easy. But in reality, it's actually the opposite. It's the struggle. And going back to the coach thing, I remember having this conversation with my coach at the time in property. And this was when we were about 2 or 3 years in. And he said, well, the thing is when they're selling the training to you, it's like they give you a golden ticket and they go, here's that special life that you've always wanted. Here's the dream life. And all you have to do is take this ticket. But actually what they don't show you on the other side of the ticket is the pain, the extra work, the 18-hour days, the worry, the stress that goes along with it. So you only see the good side. And then you take the ticket and you go, oh, damn, I've taken it and now I'm in. And I've got all this stuff now going on in my life. So actually, I think if I was starting again, it's just being more aware that, the path to success in property, but in anything, is not like this. You're going to go, whoa, up and down, roller coaster all over. But as long as you're doing that consistent action over time, that is like another mantra, consistent action over time, you will get to your goals, but be prepared for the struggle as well.
Brilliant. And I think that is a great way to conclude this, because it's, again, a very, very good message. And having coached so many tennis players over 30 years, 35 years, the biggest thing that young coaches underestimate is how long it takes.
Yeah.
I mean,
not number one in the world yet. Come on.
Yeah. And there are the phenoms.
Yeah.
But if you're not a phenom, which is the vast majority of people,
yeah.
99.99%.
Yeah.
It takes a long time. But even for the phenoms, they're phenomenal, and they have the work ethic and put in the time, and everybody's got to do the work.
Yeah.
Just some people can get it done faster than others. It's as simple as that, I mean, and but if you keep putting in the work, you definitely are gonna get better.
Yeah, you'll get the rewards. It's just sticking at it, isn't it, over time? So
brilliant. Well, thank you very much for your time, and next will be you to put me in the hot seat.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.